$4.7 million. That's how much her husband had hidden while telling her they couldn't afford a family vacation. 72 hours ago, Victoria Ashford had stood in her own driveway with $47 in her purse, watching strangers repossess her car and change the locks on her home. Her husband Marcus had filed for emergency custody, claiming she was unstable, claiming she'd abandoned their children, claiming she was unfit to be a mother. Every word was a lie. But Marcus had made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated the woman he'd spent 14 years controlling. While he was hiding money in shell companies and buying beach houses for his mistress, Tori had been quietly making copies of documents, bank statements, property records, wire transfers, evidence of a life he thought she knew nothing about. She'd walked into that emergency hearing with nothing but a manila envelope and the truth. And she'd won. Now, 6 days later, Tori stood in the foyer of the home she'd been locked out of. The home she'd lived in for 11 years. The home where she'd raised her children and built a life that turned out to be built on lies. It didn't feel like home anymore. "Mom?" Tori turned at the sound of her son's voice. Ethan stood at the top of the stairs, 9 years old, still in his pajamas even though it was almost noon. His brown hair was uncombed. His eyes were red-rimmed and confused. "Hi, baby," Tori's voice cracked. She'd imagined this moment 1,000 times over the past week. She'd prepared herself for anger, for confusion, for the damage Marcus had done to their children's perception of her. She hadn't prepared herself for how small Ethan looked, how lost. "Daddy said you weren't coming back." The words hit like a physical blow. "Daddy was wrong," Tori said softly. "I'm here. I've always wanted to be here. I never left you." Ethan hesitated at the top of the stairs. Then something broke in his small face, and he came running down, crashing into her arms with enough force to make her stumble. She held him while he cried. She held him while he asked questions she couldn't fully answer. She held him while her heart shattered into pieces and reformed into something harder, something that would never forgive Marcus for what he'd done to their children. Footsteps on the stairs. Heavier, slower, deliberate. Tori looked up. Olivia stood on the landing, 13 years old, wearing an expression that wasn't confusion or relief. It was anger. "So you decided to come back." Olivia's voice was cold, teenage cold, the kind of cold that came from hurt transformed into armor. "I didn't leave, sweetheart." Tori kept her voice gentle, even as Ethan clung to her waist. "Your father locked me out. He changed the locks while I was dropping you at school. Everything he told you was a lie. That's not what Dad says." "I know, and I understand why you believed him. He's your father. You trusted him." Tori swallowed the fury rising in her chest. Marcus had weaponized their daughter against her. He'd spent months preparing for this, feeding Olivia stories, turning her into an ally in his scheme. "But I need you to know the truth, Liv. I need you to know that I would never, ever abandon you. Not for a single day. Not for a single hour." Olivia's jaw tightened. The judge made Dad let you come back. That doesn't mean he was lying. The judge ruled in my favor because I had evidence. Evidence that your father was hiding millions of dollars from this family. Evidence that he lied in his court filing." Olivia's expression flickered. Just for a second. Just enough. She's seen something, Tori realized. Or heard something. Some part of Marcus's carefully constructed story didn't add up, and Olivia, smart, observant Olivia, had noticed. "I don't want to fight with you," Tori said carefully. "I don't want to make you choose sides. I just want to be your mother again. Can you give me a chance to show you the truth?" Olivia was silent for a long moment. Then she turned and walked back up the stairs without a word. The bedroom door slammed. Ethan flinched in Tori's arms. "She's been like that since you left," he whispered. "She believes everything Dad says." Tori stroked his hair. "She's hurting, baby. When people are hurting, they sometimes push away the people who love them most." "Are you and Dad getting divorced?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unavoidable. "Yes," Tori said quietly. "We are." "Because of what he did?" "Because of a lot of things. Things you're too young to fully understand right now. But I promise you, Ethan, no matter what happens between me and your father, I will always be your mother. I will always be here. I will never leave you again. Promise? I promise. She held him tighter, looking up the stairs toward Olivia's closed door, knowing that one child was back in her arms and the other was still lost in Marcus's web of lies. She had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. That night, out after the children were in bed, Tori sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open and her phone charging beside her. The house was quiet, but the silence felt heavy rather than peaceful. This home didn't belong to her anymore. It belonged to the lie Marcus had built, and she was just a temporary occupant until the courts decided what happened next. Her phone buzzed. A text from Renee. Sandra found more. Call me when the kids are asleep. Tori looked at the clock. 11:47 p.m. She called. Renee answered on the first ring. You sitting down? I'm sitting. What did she find? You know that $4.7 million we thought was everything? Yeah, Renee paused. It wasn't everything. Tori's stomach dropped. What do you mean? I mean, Sandra spent the last 5 days tracing the money trail. The shell companies, the wire transfers, the hidden accounts. And what we found in that flash drive, that was just what Marcus kept at home. There's more, Tori. A lot more. How much more? We're not sure yet, but Sandra found evidence of at least 2 more properties we didn't know about. And there's a business account that's been receiving deposits that don't match any of his legitimate transactions. What does that mean? It means either Marcus has another income source he never reported, or he's been skimming money from his own company. Tori closed her eyes. Could he go to jail? If what Sandra suspects is true? Yes. Embezzlement, tax fraud, hiding assets in a divorce proceeding. He could be facing serious criminal charges. The words hung in the air. She'd wanted justice. She'd wanted to take back what was hers. But prison, the father of her children, there's something else, Renee said quietly. The house in Wilmington. Sandra did some digging. The one where Brittany Cole lives. Yeah. Turns out Brittany Cole has been living there for 18 months. The same amount of time Marcus has been acting different. The same timeline as when he started hiding money. So, the affair has been going on a lot longer than we thought. And Tori? Sandra found receipts. Jewelry purchases, car payments, vacations, all on accounts you never knew existed, all for her. Tori's hands were shaking, not from sadness, from rage. He was building a whole other life. While she'd been raising his children and supporting his career and sacrificing everything for their family, he'd been planning his escape. Planning to throw her away like garbage and start over with a younger woman in a beach house she'd paid for with her silence and her sacrifice. What do we do now? Now, Renee said, we build the case that destroys him. The 60-day hearing is coming. And when we walk into that courtroom, Tori, we're not just going to win. We're going to make sure Marcus Ashford never does this to anyone else again. Tori looked at the dark windows of her kitchen, seeing her reflection looking back at her. The woman who'd been locked out with $47. The woman who'd slept on her best friend's couch and worked through the night to save her children. The woman who was about to become her husband's worst nightmare. Good, she said. Let's get started. But before I tell you exactly what Sandra Okafor found, and what Marcus did when he realized his wife wasn't going to stay broken, I need you to do something important. If you're new here, this is part 2 of the Envelope series. If you haven't seen part 1, the link is in the description. Go watch it first, then come back. Trust me, you'll want the full story. And if you're already subscribed and following along, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Are you in Charlotte, Atlanta, Chicago, Houston, Los Angeles, London? I want to see how far this story is traveling. Now let's get back to Tori, because what she discovered next didn't just confirm her husband was hiding money. It proved he was a criminal. Sandra Okafor's office was on the 14th floor of a glass tower in uptown Charlotte. The view was impressive, the furniture was expensive, and the woman behind the desk had spent 20 years destroying men who thought they were too smart to get caught. She was exactly the kind of person Marcus Ashford should have been afraid of. Mrs. Ashford. Sandra stood as Tori entered, shaking her hand with a firm grip. Thank you for coming in. You said you found something. I found a lot of things. Sandra gestured to a chair and returned to her own seat behind a desk covered with organized stacks of documents. Please sit. This is going to take a while. Tori sat. Renee had offered to come with her, but Tori had wanted to hear this alone first, to process it before she had to explain it to anyone else. Sandra pulled a thick folder toward her. Let me start with what we knew. Based on the documents you photographed over the past 6 months, we identified approximately $4.7 million in hidden assets. Shell companies in Delaware and Wyoming. Properties in Wilmington and Myrtle Beach. Bank accounts at institutions your husband never told you about. That was the preliminary finding, Tori said. You said there was more. There is. Sandra opened the folder. When I traced the money backward, I found the sources. Some of it came from legitimate business profits that Marcus simply diverted into hidden accounts instead of reporting them. Standard asset hiding behavior in high net worth divorces. She paused, but some of it came from somewhere else. Where? His own company. Sandra pulled out a spreadsheet covered in highlighted numbers. Ashford Development Group has 12 employees and does about $8 million in revenue annually. Marcus is the sole owner. Over the past 3 years, I found systematic discrepancies between what the company reported earning and what actually flowed through its accounts. Discrepancies? Tori leaned forward. What kind of discrepancies? The kind that suggest he's been skimming, inflating expenses on paper, then pocketing the difference, creating phantom vendors who get paid for work that never happened, billing clients for services at one rate and recording a different rate in the books. That's embezzlement. Yes, Sandra's voice was matter of fact, and it's not small scale. Over 3 years, I estimate he's diverted approximately $1.2 million from his own company through these methods. Tori's mind raced. His own company. His employees trusted him. His business partners, his clients, they all trusted him. There's more, Sandra continued. The $1.2 million from the company is separate from the money he hid from your marriage. When you add it all together, the hidden accounts, the skimmed money, the unreported income, she slid a single sheet of paper across the desk. A summary page. A single number at the bottom, circled in red. $6.3 million. Tori stared at the number. $6.3 million. While she'd been clipping coupons and worrying about the grocery budget, while she'd been telling Olivia they couldn't afford new volleyball gear, while she'd been sleeping in a car and eating fast food because she only had $47. $6.3 million. How is this possible? Her voice came out strange. Thin. How did I not know? Because he made sure you didn't. Sandra's voice softened slightly. Financial abuse is sophisticated, Mrs. Ashford. It's not just hiding money. It's controlling access to information, making you feel dependent, convincing you that you don't understand business, so you shouldn't ask questions. He spent years building a cage around you, and you didn't see the bars because they were made of trust. Tori wiped her eyes. She hadn't realized she was crying. What about the house in Wilmington? Sandra's expression shifted, became more guarded. That's where it gets complicated. Complicated how? The house is registered to Meridian Holdings, LLC, which your husband controls. It was purchased 18 months ago for $890,000 cash, and according to utility records, a woman named Brittany Cole has been the primary resident since it was purchased. His marketing director, Sandra confirmed, who is 28 years old, who started working at Ashford Development 3 years ago, and who has been receiving monthly payments from a separate account your husband established, in addition to her salary. Payments for what? Sandra pulled out another document, a bank statement showing regular transfers. The payments are labeled as consulting fees, but the amounts don't match any consulting contract on file with the company. And the total over 18 months is approximately $84,000. Tori did the math. That was almost $4,700 a month. More than most people's mortgages. More than the grocery budget Marcus always said was too high. She's not a consultant, Tori said flatly. No, she's not. She's his girlfriend, the woman he's been building a life with while I was raising his children and running his household. Based on the evidence, yes. Sandra paused. Mrs. Ashford, I need to ask you something directly. How do you want to proceed with this information? What do you mean? I mean that what your husband has done goes beyond civil divorce proceedings. The embezzlement, the tax fraud, The financial manipulation, these are potentially criminal matters. I can compile this evidence for your divorce case, which will almost certainly result in a very favorable outcome for you. Or I can compile it in a way that could be forwarded to law enforcement. Tori was quiet for a long moment. If it goes to law enforcement, what happens? An investigation. Probably by the IRS initially, then potentially the FBI if they find evidence of wire fraud or other federal crimes. If convicted, he could face significant prison time. He's the father of my children. I know. And that's why this is your decision. Not mine. Sandra folded her hands. Oh, but I want you to understand something. Men like Marcus don't stop. If he gets away with this, with minimal consequences, he'll do it again. To someone else's daughter, someone else's wife, someone else's mother. She leaned forward. The question you need to ask yourself is, what kind of example do you want to set for your children? What do you want Olivia to learn about how women should respond to men who betray them? What do you want Ethan to learn about accountability? Tori looked at the folder full of evidence. $6.3 million. 18 months of lies. A woman living in a beach house that Tori's sacrifice had paid for. She thought about Olivia's cold voice on the stairs. Dad says you abandoned us. She thought about Ethan's confused tears. Daddy said you weren't coming back. She thought about the woman Marcus had destroyed, the woman who'd had $47 and no hope, and how close she'd come to letting him win. Give me everything, she said. Every account, every property, every fraudulent transaction. Everything. Everything. Tori's voice was steel. Prepare it for the divorce hearing, and prepare a separate package for the authorities. You're sure? I'm sure. Tori stood. He wanted to make me disappear. He wanted to take my children and leave me with nothing. He wanted to build a new life with someone else while I wondered what I'd done wrong. She picked up her purse. He doesn't get to win. Not this time. Not ever again. Marcus Ashford found out about the forensic investigation 3 weeks before the final hearing, and he didn't take it well. Tori was making dinner when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. You think you're smart, don't you? Marcus's voice, but different, harder. The polished charm stripped away, leaving something raw and ugly underneath. Marcus, don't play innocent with me. I know you hired some accountant to dig through my business. I know you're trying to build a case. Tori kept her voice steady. I'm preparing for our divorce hearing. That's all. That's all? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're trying to destroy me. You're trying to take everything I built. Everything you built? Tori's composure cracked. I spent 14 years supporting your career. I dropped out of college for you. I worked 2 jobs while you got your real estate license. I did the books for your first 5 years. I raised your children while you were hiding money with your girlfriend. Silence on the other end. Yeah, Marcus. I know about Brittany. I know about the house in Wilmington. I know about the $84,000 in consulting fees. I know about everything. When Marcus spoke again, his voice had changed. Colder, more controlled, more dangerous. You don't know what you're getting into. Actually, I do. For the first time in 14 years, I know exactly what I'm dealing with. If you think you're going to walk into that courtroom and take my company, my money, my reputation, you're out of your mind. I have lawyers. I have resources. I have friends in places you've never even heard of. You also have $6.3 million in hidden assets and evidence of embezzlement. Tori's voice didn't waver. I'd be careful about threats, Marcus. The judge already doesn't like you. The line went dead. Tori's hands were shaking, but not from fear, from the release of 14 years of silence. 14 years of being the supportive wife, the quiet partner, the woman who never made waves because making waves might upset the man who controlled everything. That woman was gone. The next day, Marcus filed an emergency motion claiming that Tori was psychologically abusing the children and attempting to alienate them from their father. The day after that, Tori received a letter from Gregory Whitfield, Marcus's lawyer, demanding that she cease all investigation into her husband's financial affairs and threatening legal action for invasion of privacy. The day after that, Olivia came home from a weekend at Marcus's apartment with a question. Mom, is it true you're trying to put Dad in jail? Tori set down the laundry she was folding. Where did you hear that? Dad told me. He said you hired people to dig through his private stuff, and now you're going to send him to prison and I'll never see him again. Her voice cracked on the last words. Despite her teenage anger, despite weeks of coldness, Olivia was still a child who loved her father. Tori sat down on the couch and patted the space beside her. Come here, Liv. Olivia hesitated. Then she sat, keeping distance between them, her body language guarded, but her eyes showing something different. Fear, confusion, the beginnings of doubt. I'm not trying to put your father in jail, Tori said carefully. What I'm trying to do is make sure that our divorce is fair, that I get what I'm entitled to after 14 years of marriage. But Dad said, your father has told you a lot of things that aren't true. Tori kept her voice gentle. He told you I abandoned you. That wasn't true. He told you I was unstable. That wasn't true either. And now he's telling you I'm trying to destroy him. He's scared, Mom. Olivia's voice was small. I've never seen him like this. He was yelling on the phone with his lawyer and throwing things. Tori's chest tightened. Your father made choices, Liv. Choices that have consequences. I didn't make him hide money. I didn't make him lie to the courts. I just found out about it. What kind of choices? Tori hesitated. How much truth could a 13-year-old handle? Financial choices, business choices, choices about how he treated our family. Olivia was quiet for a long moment. Then, is there someone else? The question hung in the air. Tori hadn't planned to have this conversation. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But Olivia deserved the truth. She deserved to understand why her world was falling apart. Yes, Tori said finally. There's someone else. A woman who works for your father's company. It's been going on for a while. Olivia's face crumpled. She didn't cry. But something shifted behind her eyes. Some last wall of denial crumbled. He told me you were the one who destroyed the family. I know. He said you were selfish. That you only cared about yourself. I know. He lied. It wasn't a question. Yes, baby. Tori reached out, and this time Olivia didn't pull away. He lied. About a lot of things. Olivia leaned into her mother's arms, the first real contact they'd had in weeks. Maybe months. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry I believed him. You don't have to apologize. You're 13 years old. You trusted your father. That's what children are supposed to do. She held her daughter while the afternoon light faded, while Ethan played video games upstairs, while somewhere across town Marcus Ashford was probably plotting his next move. Let him plot. Let him file his motions and threaten his lawsuits and throw his tantrums. In 23 days, they would be back in court, and Tori would be ready. 23 days passed in a blur of preparation. Sandra Okafor finished her forensic analysis. The final number wasn't $4.7 million. It wasn't $6.3 million. It was $7.1 million in assets that Marcus had hidden, diverted, or stolen over the course of their marriage. $7.1 million. The breakdown was devastating. $2.3 million in shell company accounts across 3 states. $1.4 million in real estate, including the Wilmington house and 2 investment properties in Myrtle Beach. $1.2 million embezzled from his own company through fraudulent billing practices. $890,000 in cryptocurrency he'd purchased through an offshore exchange. $620,000 in retirement accounts she'd never known existed. $430,000 in a trust fund established in his own name, supposedly for estate planning purposes. $250,000 in direct payments to Brittany Cole over 2 years, disguised as consulting fees, vendor payments, and marketing expenses. Every penny documented, every transaction traced, every lie exposed. Daniel Whitmore, the family law attorney who had helped Tori at the initial hearing, agreed to take her case for the final proceeding. He reviewed Sandra's findings with barely concealed amazement. In 30 years of practice, he said, I've seen a lot of financial fraud, but this is one of the most systematic and deliberate asset concealment schemes I've ever encountered. Can we win? We can do more than win. Daniel set down the folder. Based on the fraud, the hidden assets, and the documented pattern of deception, I'm going to ask for a 75% allocation of all marital assets. I'm also going to request full legal custody with limited supervised visitation for Marcus, given his pattern of using the children as weapons. He paused. And I'm going to recommend that the judge refer the embezzlement evidence to the district attorney's office. What Marcus did to his own company isn't just a civil matter. It's criminal. Tori nodded. She'd made peace with this decision over the past 3 weeks. Marcus had made his choices. Now he would face the consequences. The night before the hearing, she couldn't sleep. She walked through the house at 2 a.m., looking at photos on the walls. Their wedding day. The children as babies. Family vacations she now knew were funded by lies. She'd loved him once. Really loved him. The young man who'd been hungry and ambitious. The partner who'd held her hand and promised they'd build something together. That man was gone. Maybe he'd never really existed. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Last chance. Sign the settlement offer. Walk away with what I'm offering, or I will destroy you in that courtroom tomorrow. Tori stared at the message for a long moment. Then she typed back 4 words. See you in court. She turned off her phone and went back to bed. Tomorrow, everything would change. The morning of the hearing dawned gray and cold. Tori dressed carefully. The same navy dress she'd worn to the first hearing, now professionally dry cleaned. The pearl earrings Renee had given her for luck. Minimal makeup. Professional hair. She looked like a woman ready for battle. Because she was. Renee picked her up at 7:30. Sandra would meet them at the courthouse with the evidence boxes, 3 of them, containing every document, every statement, every piece of proof that Marcus Ashford was a fraud. Daniel was already there when they arrived, reviewing notes, conferring with his paralegal. Are you ready? He asked. Tori looked at the courtroom doors. Beyond them, Marcus was probably already seated, surrounded by his legal team, still convinced he could talk his way out of anything. He had no idea what was coming. I've been ready for 14 years, she said. I just didn't know it. Daniel nodded. Then let's finish this. He pushed open the doors, and Tori walked into the courtroom where her marriage would end and her new life would begin. Marcus was there, as expected. But he wasn't smirking this time. He wasn't casually confident. He looked tired, smaller somehow. The arrogance drained away, leaving something desperate in its place. Good, Tori thought. He should be desperate, because in the next 3 hours, Judge Patricia Coleman was going to see everything. The hidden millions, the embezzlement, the affair, the house he'd bought for another woman while his wife slept in a car, the lies he'd told his children. Every single secret Marcus Ashford had buried was about to be dug up, examined, and laid bare before the court. And there was nothing he could do to stop it. All rise. The bailiff's voice cut through the tension. The Honorable Judge Patricia Coleman presiding. The judge entered. The room stood. And Tori Ashford prepared to take back everything that had been stolen from her. But what happened in that courtroom over the next 3 hours didn't just end her marriage. It ended Marcus Ashford's career, his freedom, and everything he thought he could never lose. But that's a story for part 3. So viewers, what do you think about what Tori discovered? $7.1 million. That's what Marcus was hiding while telling her they couldn't afford vacations. Have you ever found out that someone you trusted was living a completely different life? Have you ever discovered that the person you loved was capable of things you never imagined? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story is making your blood boil, if you need to see Marcus finally face the consequences, subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Because part 3 is where it all comes together. The courtroom confrontation. The envelope opened. The final judgment. You don't want to miss what happens when Judge Coleman sees everything. The envelope. Part 3. The judge opened it. The courtroom went silent. Coming soon. And remember, you're never as trapped as someone wants you to believe. The lies people tell always catch up to them. And the truth always finds a way. Until next time.